on the other hand, if you need a translator, that is something that maybe when you get published, your publisher could arrange. But if you know a good translator, make friends with him or her. So writing, I think, after all, it's something that you want to enjoy, really. So the enjoyment comes from expressing yourself in words and sentences and creating something beautiful. And the best way to do that is in whatever language you are comfortable with.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very
Digvijay,
much, sir.
Digvijay,
Yes,
I'll
yes, sir.
ask a question for the
Yes,
benefit
sir.
of students.
Please, sir. Please, sir. Please, sir.
You know, Ruskinji, the major issue for any writer is how do I draw an inspiration to write? I mean, where should I start from? Is it that, I look around, for example, your writings, it is everyday life,
Yes.
right? Everyday life in the hills is a little more interesting, and your writing skills make it even a little more interesting. And since you write very light kind of, everyday events, happenings in your life, somehow people have got to like it. Now, is that the kind of easy trying to express yourself with respect to things around you, the most convenient and the most acceptable way of writing? Or is it important to have big ideas, heavy ideas to write? So what is the best strategy to be able to make a beginning in writing?
Thank you, sir, for that question. I think it depends on what kind of book or what kind of subject you want to pursue. I, as an essayist, a novelist, a short story writer, found I could write best about my immediate surroundings, about the place where I lived and grew up. As a similar writer would have been, say, R.K. Narayan, who wrote about small town life in Mysore. And so I, being a very selfish and lazy person, decided I would write in the easiest way possible, which was about my own life and the life around me. But you might well want to write about other things, fantasy, space, science fiction, politics, history. I mean, so many avenues. And you see, it comes down perhaps to the vital question is a writer born or is he made? And I think if writing is something that is perhaps intrinsic in one's nature, so in a way, one is born a writer, because as we grow up, some people want to write and others back away from it. They don't want to. So I think it's something in one's nature. And so the best way to go about it is to follow your nature and write about the things that really interest you. Because if it's going to be a long-term project and you're going to make a profession or vocation out of it, so it's something that you would you'll have to sustain your interest in your particular subject over a long period of time. So I would say certainly, I think those who perhaps want to write about very serious subjects or on a big scale, or write about world issues, or make in fact influence society, would perhaps be not just writers by nature, but they would be using language for a particular purpose. If I make sense in that way.
And secondly, what is more important? Is it the idea which is more important, or the vocabulary of the person which is more important?
Oh, well, we have to start with the vocabulary, because I've had only the other day a letter from a schoolgirl. She must have been 10, 11. Sir, she writes, I want to be a writer. Writter. So she hadn't yet learned to spell. So it's no use jumping into the fray. And every day almost I receive a little book, self-published, by a child or an adolescent, and very often it's very good that the boy or the girl is wanting to express himself or herself and write a story or a novel, but it doesn't come off, you see, because mommy and daddy have gone and paid what we call a vanity publisher, a couple of lakhs, please, and print my little boy's novel. And these publishers don't even have editors. They don't even correct the English. So it doesn't serve any purpose, launching into publication with what you write, unless you have mastered the essentials of language. So if whether it's your mother tongue or it's Hindi or it's English, I think you must have a grounding in grammar and composition. Not, I don't wish to be, too strict about it. You can, after all, experiment, but that grounding should be there. So that gives you a certain facility in language, in using it, and gives you the confidence to use it properly. We mustn't insult the language in which we write, whichever it is, by writing in such a, you might say, a way that the reader will just not continue more than a page or two. So I would always say, be ready with the basics. Get the basics right, and that will make it so much easier as you go on with, and then you make use of then the ideas come into fore. You will use your ideas and be able to convey them better through your mastery of the language that you're using. So language first, ideas second, because without the language you cannot present your ideas in a very confident or meaningful way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go on, Digvijay.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. So, sir, now I would like to go with the next question, because many of our BA Honors English and MA English students, they have joined, and I'm receiving their questions in abundance, but we have selected a few out of them. And the next question is from Simran Kaur, BA Honors English. She asks that you are a living legend and a prolific writer. What makes you prefer writing short stories to novels?
Oh, yes. Thank you for that question. There's always reason. One, I'm a lazy person. I can write a short story in a day or two. A novel can take anything up to a year or more. And when I started out as a writer, I had very limited funds. And to write a novel, who's going to feed you and look after you if you can't support yourself? So as a young man in my 20s and 30s, not only did I enjoy writing short stories, but I could get a check back in the mail within a few weeks or a month or two. Hopefully, it didn't always arrive, but sometimes it did. And so by writing, I could say the first 10 or 15 years of my writing life was devoted so much to short work, because I was also trying to make a living from writing. And so I bombarded every magazine or newspaper in our country, and a few abroad too, with my stories and articles and essays. And I managed to actually make a living out of it. And now and then, and in between, I'd write a short novel, not a long one, but a short novel or novella, and other things too, poems and essays. So a novel is something that you have to live with, you see, over a period of time. Um, and the great novelists actually didn't often write short stories. And the great short story writers didn't often write novels. I mean, you think of Maupassant, Chekhov, he wrote plays, but he didn't write novels. Then you have Somerset Maugham, and you had O. Henry, and you had Saki, all short story writers. Huh? Um, and occasionally they might write a novel or a short novel. But so you had these two different genres, which are actually quite different. Um, I prefer the short story because I can do it in one um, intense short period of creativity, and then it's done. But with a novel, you have to live with your characters, and I've known people who've got just stuck halfway through, and it's very hard to finish then if you don't have it all worked out in your mind. And it takes a lot of persistence and a lot of I writing a novel is hard work. Writing a short story is fun. That's the difference.
Thank you very much, sir. Now, moving to the next question, which is what asked by Priyanka, our MA English student. She says that, how do you see Indian English literature over the last few years? Do you think there is scope in writing even today when people are more engrossed in social media and screen media?
Yes, that's true. The majority of young people are into technology and into social media, but then there have always, you see, writing and reading have always been minority pastimes in a way. And if I go back to my school days, in a class of, say, 35 boys, there were just one or two of us who were really fond of reading, though we had a good library. And in those days, there was no technology, there was no internet, there was no television. The only other form of entertainment was going to the cinema. So reading, the interest in writing and literature was even then, I'd say, a minority pastime. Today, it is still a minority pastime, but the people who can read and who can write, who are more than literate, who are intellectual or who have the ability to write, has grown in hundreds and thousands because of the spread of education. In your regional languages, in Hindi and English, more and more people have the opportunity and can write if they want to. So I think, and the opportunities for writers has in fact grown. Back in the 50s, 60s, if you wanted to get a book published, you had to actually look abroad because our publishers were limited to academic publishers, basically. There were very few, hardly any who would publish a novel or a story collection or poetry. All that came about in the late 70s, 80s, 90s. And now we have a number of publishers throughout the country. And so there are outlets for writers. And there are a number of very successful writers today, writing in English, writing in Hindi, and even in Bengali and other languages. And there, 20, 30, 40 years ago, I couldn't think of any other writers who were making a living from it in our country, unless they were being published abroad. But now there's a large number of them. Some of them are popular writers. They write for a particular audience. They know their market. Marketing has become something new. And there are others who are writing for themselves, because basically a writer is writing for himself or herself. And if you find people who want to read your work too, and that's a bonus.
Can we say that the technological advancement that we are looking in the present time, in the modern time, that is nowhere like a hindrance in the progress? The only need is just to take the advancement or progress with the right spirit, and then
Yes.
everything would be very clear and very easy for a writer to be established.
Yes, I think writers must
Yes.
make use of these technological innovations.
Okay.
I'm hopeless. I'm technologically illiterate, but but I'm able to talk to you today because of the advances in technology, and because my grandson Siddharth here has made it possible for me to talk to you via the technology. So it has its advantages. It also has disadvantages. Let's make use of the advantages.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, our next student is Sahil Katoch from MA English, and he wants to know that what is the best genre to write in? Is it suitable for a writer to experiment with different genre, or stick to any one?
Experiment by all means, and then you will find out which one suits you best. So, just as earlier on, someone had asked me why I prefer the short story, because I found the short story genre suited me, suited my temperament. So you will find a particular genre suits your temperament, and if you can express yourself well in the essay, use the essay form. If you want to write poetry, be a poet. If you want to write fiction, you might prefer the short story or the novel, or even a short novel or novella. So there are so many genres. You might want to write biography. There you need to do research to, as with history and certain subjects. Some certain forms of writing need research too. And of course, you might want to be a journalist. That's something quite different. So there are many ways of using your talents as a writer. But I've always said that the good writers, the great writers, the really big writers, were, when they were young, they were readers. They were readers. So if you grow up with a love of books, you will want to create a book, and you will want to emulate, in a way, the writers you admired. Not writing like them, but at least be a writer like them. So it's something, it's in a way what spurs you on. Maybe it's a desire for fame, a desire for wealth even, because some writers can make a lot of money, others don't make anything. so you have to take, in a way, you're taking a chance. But chance gives, chance takes away, and chance gives again. So why not take a chance?
Yeah, definitely, sir. Now, the next question comes from Aditi Youngholm. She is BA Honors English student, and she says that as writers, sometimes it is quite difficult to continue writing after certain failures. So how to address those failures and get motivated again to write?
Yes, it is tough because failure does come, and believe me, I've had failures. To get my first book published, I had to write it about at least 3 drafts, and that over a period of about 2 years. But I persisted. So persistence is another quality you must have. Don't give up easily. Never despair, as I always say. But if you despair, work on in despair. If you have confidence in yourself and you believe you can be a successful writer and a good writer, well, stick with it. Failures will come. Disappointments came to me again and again. But I had to stick to it because, to tell you the truth, I wasn't much good at anything else. So I said, I have to be a writer. And rejections came, never mind. I kept on at it, and over a period of time, I think people, you gradually start acquiring maybe readers, and you will discover there are people who like the things you write. Yeah? So it's occasionally someone has an overnight success, but that's very rare. The majority, I think, of writers, even those who finally become successful, have gone through long periods of hard work, sometimes even depression, and have, in a way, conquered all these things. So if you've had a failure, put it aside, get on with something else. Write something different. If your novel isn't getting anywhere, uh, try a short story, try an essay, try some other form of writing, because you don't want to give up. You want to keep using your talent and your ability with words. So you won't give up. You will write, even if you're writing only for yourself.
Thank you, sir. Now there is an special question from our respected HOS sir, Professor Pavitra Prakash Singh sir, and he wants to know that though simplicity is the key to writing, but sometimes being simple, a writer compromises with the writing style, and the readers may not feel interested. Then how to create a kind of balance in between the simplicity and the effectiveness?
Yes, that's a very good question. You see, simplicity, to write simply is good, but we mustn't be too simple. I mean, I've always said I'm not a. Sometimes people call me a very simple writer. Actually, I'm not a simple writer. I'm looking for exactitude. So I always say, always use the exact word, or write in such a way that you convey to the reader what you want to convey. So if you can do that in simple language, then that's good. And if what you want to convey requires a more sophisticated approach, well, you can use that too. You see, also all my writing life, I started out as a young man writing for adults. And then in middle age, I started writing for children. So when you write for children, obviously, you have to write in a simple way. Um, and you have to sort of connect with them. When you're writing for adults, you can be a bit more indulgent and experiment with your style and try different ways of communicating. And an adult, you see, is more tolerant. He will perhaps read the first 2 or 3 chapters of your book before throwing it away. But a small boy or a girl, if you don't get his or her attention by page 2, then you had it. They're going to throw it away anyway, unless it's a prescribed text in class. So use the language that suits your subject. I think that's the best thing, or your audience, on who you're writing for. But if you look at some of the best story writers over the years, take Somerset Maugham. He had a very simple, direct style. No flourishes or nothing very flowery or fanciful there. On the other hand, you might take a writer like Dickens, who really sort of maybe would perhaps use 2 paragraphs to say something that you could in a sentence. So but then those were different times, Victorian times, when writers were inclined to be over descriptive. So that's, I think, we're all at certain times tend to be over descriptive, and that can be a fault too. Because you don't want to lose your audience, your reader.
Hello, Bondji, I would ask a question. How much did you read before you started your writing or during the
Oh,
process of writing? How much do you read on your own? I mean,
I
is
have
it
in my
something which is you
life,
find essential?
I
Because my belief is that to be able to write well, you should be able to assimilate good ideas. And
absolutely. I have now till to date read nearly, in my lifetime, somewhere near 10,000 books.
oh,
Uh, yes, that's not an exaggeration. I've calculated
you
that.
have read, I wish you say that again, that you have read 10,000 books.
Yes,
Because, the challenge with us is
about
we want
200
to
every
become
year.
writers
Oh,
and achieve a lot of things
that's
without reading.
my maths is very poor, but say let's say 200 a year over a period of 75 years, because I really became a, 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 a reader, a real reader, when I was about 10 years old. So, and by that, I mentioned that in my school we had an excellent library, and I managed to become in charge of it, so that whenever I wanted to escape horrible things like early morning PT and extra homework and things, I would go to the library. I had the keys, and I would lock myself in there, and I would read. And I remember everything in that library: the plays of Bernard Shaw, the plays of Barry and Priestley, the classical works, short stories, poetry, practically everything. I would still say today, I'm a reader first and a writer second.
And
So that's this. Yes.
Thank
your life in totality and
Yes.
to your writing.
As,
How has
as
it influenced
yes.
you as a person
True.
and you as a writer?
I've a writer became a writer by profession because of my love for books and literature, and I wanted to be part of it, part of the literary scene. Um, but I always know I'm a small writer when you think of all the great writers who have come and gone. And but after all, although you should think big, as your motto is, small is also beautiful.
It is.
Thank you very much, sir, for your insightful and valuable thoughts. And now, eventually, I would like to know what is your message and advice for the students of Lovely Professional University.
Oh, well, great. You're lucky to be in university. I never went to college or university, so it's nice to know that university students are reading my books and talking about them, because my education ended at class 10. But for the rest, all my life, as I said, I've been reading. So I educated myself. Books are the best way to get an education. But you're very fortunate. Here you are in a lovely university, lovely in both senses of the word, and make the most of it. I suggest to you, make the most of it, because I I regret sometimes I didn't go to university, although I managed pretty well without it. But if you don't go through university, you will have problems. So take care. Give your best to your university and to your studies, and think big, as your motto says. Definitely.
A million thanks to you, sir. We are highly indebted for your benign presence. Now, I would like to request our respected HF, sir, to give vote of thanks.
Oh.
Thank you, Digvijay. Bondji and Bond canon is Ruskin is a more affectionate term.
Yes,
So,
please
Mr.
call me
Singh,
Ruskin.
thank you very much for
Thank you,
your
sir.
know
Thank you.
such an inspiring presence. And as I was sharing with you yesterday, I've been reading Ruskin Bond since I was in college and used to read Tribune, and you were a regular contributor to Tribune.
Yes, Tribune,
And I
right
will
from
always look
the
forward.
days when it was in Ambala. It was
Okay.
started in Ambala, yes, sir.
Right. And I used to look forward to a couple of columns which I used to regularly look at. and one was your short story in Tribune, because it was light, it was interesting, one could relate. It was regarding nature, and it was fresh and something which would refresh you. So
Thank you.
I'm sure. And right on my table, I still have your book, which is Rain in the Mountains,
Okay.
Notes from the Himalayas.
Yes, essays.
And yes, and I'm amazed at it captures the spirit of your writing, where India Today's comment on the book says, reading this collection of short stories, essays, poems, and articles is literally like inhaling a lungful of fresh mountain air.
Thank you.
I mean,
I'm
that
inhaling
is-
it now.
Yeah. I think your very presence is as good as inhaling a lungful of fresh mountain air, because that's what you capture in your writings so very well.
Thank you.
The charm of looking at the trees and the grass and the birds and talking to people, whoever comes, whether it is the milkman or the maid, or you make, the context of a story is so one can relate to, so comfortable, and you think, it's you write like a magician. You can create story out of literally thin air. Without making it appears to be very effortless kind of writing. So it is not that you have to have very bulky and very big ideas to become a writer.
No.
But
True
I
enough.
asked you a couple of questions, and because I wanted people to realize the fact, the young people and all the budding writers to realize that I don't think it is possible to become a good writer without being a good reader.
Absolutely. Yes.
And I have seen a lot of people around me. I think it is good reading which actually gives you a lot of
Yes.
ideas,
True
right?
enough.
Your amalgamation of different ideas, your synthesis of different thoughts, the diversity of cultures that you imbibe in yourself is something which definitely propels you to write better. Because then you can compare what are the ideas I'm expressing, and a lot of expressions also, vocabulary, expressions,
Yes,
etc.
yes. You absorb so much from
Yes.
the other writers and great books.
Yes, I've been an amateur writer in my college days, and I was telling Dr. Pavitra one day, I said, if I read my poetry which I wrote in college, I would still need a dictionary to, kind of make sense of that once again, because that was the time when I'm talking about the mid 70s. So the trend was to use a little more high level vocabulary, and so you would look up a thesaurus to find out a little better words
Yes.
for expressing your thoughts. But no longer. I think people like you have, and R.K. Narayanji, you have made writing so lovable, so interesting, and so lively, and so it feels as if you are there in the mountains. It is so simple and easy to relate to and understand and appreciate. So I wish and hope your presence, Digvijay, I would have loved if you had allowed students to have a chat with him. The very charm of being able to speak to him directly is something which is
Perhaps
kind of,
perhaps we could do that on another occasion.
yes.
Have-
And Ruskinji, incidentally, we had a faculty member here in LPU who is a big fan of yours, who owns a bookshop which you often visit.
Yes.
Devdhar Shetty.
That's it. Right. Hmm?
Devdhar Shetty. So I think he has a bookshop
Where?
in Dehradun. In Dehradun.
That's it. Right. Hmm.
In Dehradun, and he says you frequently come to his bookshop. So he
Yes,
was
I-
a faculty with us, and long back he left up, and now I think he's managing his own bookshop.
That's right.
But I can see a lot of a collection of big books behind you, and all are very thin.
Yes.
Not the voluminous ones.
Yes.
So good to look at, to be able to see you and to be able to interact with you. And I'm thankful to you for being very gracious in answering all the questions. And I hope in the long run, our students should be able to feel inspired. And if some of them want some kind of guidance and inspiration from you or mentorship from you, I'm sure they will be able to access you through LPU. Thank you so very much for being very kind.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. And definitely, as per the suggestion, we would definitely plan another session which would entirely be based on the one-to-one interaction. And with this, sir, the Department of English, School of Humanities, is extremely indebted for your unconditional acceptance of the request. And please bless us with the similar interactive sessions in the future also. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Good to know all of you.
Thank you. Thank you. Pleasure. Namaskar.
Now I officially announce the ending of the session. See you in the next one. Thank you very much. Thank once again for joining us. Thank you.